Hey everyone, we are coming live to you from snowy Pennsylvania, and the audience for the audience joining us today, I'm Stacie Koroly with eXp Realty in Chester County, Westchester, and I'm speaking today with Brenda Florida, who is a writer, a life coach, and speaker. And I am really pumped. You can't tell. If you saw my face, you'd laugh. But I am so psyched to be talking to Brenda today. It's not even funny. I actually met Brenda a year ago at Suburban West Realtors Association. And we had to take this, we didn't have to, it was an honor to be accepted into this leadership program. And the first day, Brenda was our speaker, and no one knew each other. And the moment I saw Brenda, I liked her instantly. She wore really colorful clothes. She had really cool glasses and was completely at ease with herself, and just made everybody in the room relaxed and open-minded. And it was one of the best sessions for that leadership program, Brenda, I got to tell you. And it's my favorite part, was my favorite part. So before we begin, I just want to let everyone know that this is not a real estate talk. It is a life coach. It's a mindset talk. So we're not even going to really be mentioning real estate at all. As I said, Brenda Florida is a life coach, and really I just want to begin. So let me see. Why don't you tell us, Brenda, a little bit?
I'm just going to say, Stacie, I'm going to interrupt you. So that's so rude of me right from the very beginning, but I have to say thank you. Like, what a lovely introduction. It is my pleasure and always my honor to do the leadership program for Suburban West Realtor Association. And, each class is memorable in their own way. You know, your class was so much fun, and no better compliments to me what you have just said about me, and that's probably the openness piece. Although I like the colorful clothes and cool glasses, that's great. I really well, and that's what my journey has brought me to. It was not always, so I will let you go back to asking your questions, and just thank you so much for having me here on the podcast with you.
No, so actually you just led me to the right question, which was, why don't you tell us, the audience, how you started on this journey? Because you, years ago, were not like this, and something happened for a great reason, but I just want people to know about your journey, because I was struck by it the moment that I heard it.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, so I got married very young. I got married right out of high school to my high school sweetheart. I mean, I got married because I wanted to. And then we started having our family about a year later. And so by the time I was 26 years old, I had 4 kids under the age of 7. And we had just sold our Domino's Pizza franchise. And that's actually when I got into real estate. So we sold our franchise, and my husband wanted to do another business, and a friend of mine wanted to get her real estate license and just wanted somebody to go to class with her. And I said yes. I never thought I would work in real estate. But that's how it starts often for many of us. But our financial situation worsened, and I ended up needing to go to work. And I can remember, so now my youngest son is 2, so I'm like, the ripe old age of 28 years old. And I was so depressed. And I am a very, and always have been, very optimistic, very happy person by nature. I was just saying to a friend the other day, I'm so grateful, because I feel like it's just easier for me to be happy than it is for some people. Like, I'm just naturally very happy and optimistic. But here I was, I've got these 4 kids and supposed to be living the life of my dream. I mean, that's what I always wanted, and, whatever, with my, high school sweetheart, blah, blah, blah. And I was so depressed. I couldn't do anything but show up for work for a few hours and come home and lay on the couch. And so I knew something was terribly, terribly wrong. And so that's kind of where my journey began. And I worked with a therapist for many, many years. I mean, the way I would characterize it now was that began me to awakening. And for me, awakening is about finding those patterns that I was raised with, or cultured by because of the religious culture I was raised in and all the various things in our cultures, broad and close at home, that impact us, that we pick up and we just take those patterns on and live that way and assume that's normal and, all those things until something wakes us up and says, oh, wait a minute, this isn't really serving me anymore. And I need to figure out, how to change this, what to do about it.
So you bring up a great point, and I just wanted to stop you right there because I'll forget it and I'll forget to ask you, what fears did you have to overcome, or what was so I grew up in a Catholic, upbringing, and I was taught, you're taught to think a certain way, and if you don't, then there's something wrong and you shouldn't really question anything. Did you have an aha moment, or what were some fears or stereotypes that you had to overcome as a wife and a woman in order to break through that and start going to counseling?
Yes. So I had a lot of them. So my background was a very fundamentalist Baptist upbringing, but any kind of really conservative religious upbringing is going to typically create the same kinds of, things like, and lots of self-judgment. And I had, a mother load of those. On top of that, I was very codependent. So I don't know how many folks are real familiar with that term, but it's basically that it's a person very prone to want to please other people and actually overfunction or overcare for other people instead of those people taking care of themselves. So this is where, in the classic definition of it, you've got a codependent with an alcoholic. And so when the alcoholic gets drunk, they have their codependent spouse or friend call in sick for them or whatever, and the codependent ends up enabling that behavior of the addict. And it happens a lot when you are raised in a home where your parents or your caretakers aren't very emotionally equipped to take care of themselves and kind of give that job to their children unconsciously, of course. And so I kind of raised my mother and emotionally cared for my mother. And that kind of set me up for that. So I had a lot of fears to overcome there. And I actually didn't have a lot of support. I didn't really have any support from the people in my life. Like, my husband was pissed because I was spending the money to go to therapy. I had a girlfriend that was fairly supportive, but I didn't have my parents, my family didn't really even understand, any of that. So it's not like I had anybody cheering me on. So I sort of had to do it against the odds, if that makes sense.
No, it makes total sense. It's almost like you're swimming against the tide. You really have no support. And it's like, what made you keep on going? Because most people, I think, just fall back and they survive. They're not thriving. So every day, they want to make that change, or they see what could be, but most people are fearful. So what made you just keep on plowing through? Because that consistency, I think, is missing for many people on different levels in life, but you had the option to easily fall back and you didn't. Are you there? Hey, can you hear me?
No, I lost you for a moment.
Oh, okay. So I was saying, it was the best. You missed it.
I'm so I don't know what happened. I just all of a sudden couldn't hear you anymore.
No, that's all right. So what I was saying is, in a testimony to you, is that you didn't have support and you easily could have fallen back and survived and lived in that mode like so many people do. They survive, they don't thrive. You kept on pushing. That consistency, I think, on many levels throughout life can serve so many people. So how did you push through, or how long did that journey take you?
I guess I would say, so there are those who believe that what I'll call a drive, because to me it's very much a drive to discover or, tap into my own consciousness, my own enlightenment journey, so to speak. Was very powerful for me. And there are those that believe that that's a drive, just like any other ambition or a sex drive or anything else that some people, we all just kind of innately have varying degrees of that drive. I will tell you, I am very driven professionally. I'm very driven in many, many ways. I was so driven to really be a good mother. And so that was part of it. I mean, a lot of things drove me because I was like, I knew whatever was happening for me, I didn't want to give that to my kids, or I wanted to mitigate that as much as I could, And so some of it was wanting to be a better person for my children. But it was also for me, like once I realized that there could be more, that I didn't have to live in a limited state with all these beliefs that I had, that I wasn't good enough, that I wasn't smart. I mean, I spent until I was probably 35, I thought I'll say stupid. I did not think I was smart. I didn't want to take my SATs. I didn't take my SATs. I didn't go to college, all kinds of things, because I just didn't think I was a smart person. So I had tons of limiting beliefs about myself that kept me in such an inferior position. And I'm not even sure I can say what the thing was, but somewhere in that, with that first therapist, I just kind of caught the vision that it didn't have to be that way. And once I had a tiny belief that it didn't have to be that way, then I was driven like a dog on a bone to keep uncovering it and find out, how much better I could be, basically, how much better I could make my life, how much better I could make life for my family, all those things. So yes, I am incredibly driven to that. And I still am. I mean, it is absolutely just part of my life. I invest so much time and money in my own personal and spiritual development that it's sort of just made sense a few years ago when I decided to become a life coach. It was like, oh yeah, that's probably what I should have always been, except, they weren't very well understood or heard of 10 years ago, but it's sort of perfect for me.
I think you were born to do it, and I'm just glad that you figured it out, and I was able to be part of your experience at Suburban West, because it did make me a better person, and really has nothing to do with your career or industry. Like for real estate, for example, like you could hire a real estate coach and learn how to make more money, but your foundation, your base is really what you're about.
Yes.
You're a life coach. And without that base, it's like you're building a house made out of sand.
Yes. So I love that you brought that up, because it's funny, because in my business, if anybody goes to my website, which is just my name, brendaflorida.com, but you will see that I have coaching services, and then I do business consulting. And sometimes that's with people in the real estate business, sometimes not. So I spent 30 years in the real estate business, so I know the real estate business very well. But whether it's real estate or any other entrepreneurial endeavor, or you have a classic, job and you go to work, it doesn't matter as much what those things are. It's who you are showing up to do them. And so the mindset issues, like you can spend money as an agent or, an entrepreneur like myself doing an online business, because life coaching you can do from anywhere. So that's an online platform for marketing and things like that. You can spend all the money for all the training and get your sales funnel and get your, prospecting ideas and your CRM and all your things. But your mindset will take you off course faster than any of those things can put you on course. And so I am such a believer. And the other thing is that there's no segmenting our lives in truth. So I'll have a client that comes to me because they're having relationship problems. And as we clear up their relationship problems, they suddenly figure out how to clear up their career problems. Because once we start to build these tools and clean up and align our lives with what I have these 4 things, I call them like the 4 components of sustainable transformation, because I'm only interested in change that will last, not short-term change. And I realize working, with clients and also in my own life, 4 things have to be aligned for us to make any sort of lasting change. And they are what I like to call yearnings, because I think a yearning is a powerful word, but think of desire. It has to be something you really want, your agenda, not what somebody wants for you, what somebody thinks is a good idea, any of that. It has to be your deep yearning and desire.
Okay.
And then you have to get your thoughts.
I was going to say real quick, people should write these 4 things down.
Yes, and they're on my website. When it's probably on my coaching page. If you go to the coaching page, I have these 4 things on there. So yes, it's yearnings and then thoughts. Our thoughts, of course, that's the mindset piece. Our thoughts will derail all of that. As soon as you have a not good thought. When I first started my coaching business, now we're going to, that was just 4 years ago. So fast forward way out of my 20s when I was depressed. I got up off the couch. I, recovered nicely. I ended up divorcing my first husband. I moved to Pennsylvania. All these things happened in my life. Okay. So now at the time I was like 54, because that was like 4 years ago. I had left a 3rd relationship, and my professional life was sort of in flux. So I'm just having crisis all over the place again. Okay. So that's the way my life works. And so I'm doing things to build my coaching practice. I'm spending money for people to train me as an online entrepreneur. I got all these things going and nothing's quite working, right? Like I'm not really having the results I'm expecting and whatever. And I'm sitting in my car, just, contemplating what the fuck, can I say fuck?
Yeah, let's do it.
Is going on. Okay. I have a little bit of a potty mouth. And I realize I have this thought that I'm not good enough. I just didn't think I was good enough to have the life that I was intellectually dreaming of. So I had the yearning, but then I had the thoughts that took me right off of that. And always right next to a thought is the 3rd thing, which are your feelings. And our thoughts and our feelings are never disconnected. A feeling either triggers a thought or a thought triggers the feeling. So as soon as you have that, negative, critical thought, you're going to have a feeling that comes right behind it that doesn't serve you. And then the 4th piece of those 4 components is action. Now, I'm a big doer, so I don't have problems with not taking action towards things, but a lot of people do. And if any 4 of those are out of alignment, or let me say it this way, anything you look at that you're trying to accomplish or change in your life, a habit you want to start or stop, any kind of business change, personal change, anything that isn't working for you, 1 or more of those things is out of alignment. Because even if we are taking action, like me, I'm a big doer, so taking action is the easy part. I was taking all kinds of action towards this, but none of it was really working. And that's because my thoughts and my feelings were in that I'm not good enough department. And so it didn't matter that I had the yearning and I was taking action, because I was unconsciously sabotaging what I was doing with those thoughts and feelings. So it's a kind of simple formula, but it's a complicated thing to work out how those are derailing you in your own life, which is why I do what I do, because I help people figure that out.
So you bring up a great point with the 4, I'll just say pillars for the sake of saying a word. Do you find that?
Yes, that's a great, that's perfect.
Yeah. So do you find that maybe what would be the most common of those pillars that people fall under that don't serve them well? Like it's not action. Maybe it's not action. Maybe it's their thoughts. What do you think, or, the people that you've worked with in the past, what do you find, or is everybody different?
Experience it. Okay,
Okay, I'm
sorry. I
sorry.
think my internet just freaked for a second there. So the way I experience these four things with other people and myself, it's almost like action and yearnings or the bookends or something. I don't know if that's a perfect metaphor, but because no matter what we do, unless you've gotten to become, you've already become an enlightened being, we all have feelings that will diminish us and, be critical or be judgmental or whatever. So everybody's going to have thoughts and mess them up. That's why mindset is so important to everything. Okay.
Yeah.
But the one that will trick people sometimes is the yearning piece, because depending on your personality and the culture you were brought up in, and sometimes your gender, because sometimes I would say, just to be oversimplified and make a broad sweeping statement, women are more prone to this problem than men are. But in the yearning category, we will often try to do what someone else wants to do. And it's not really our thing, whether it's to lose weight or exercise or whatever. It's such a culturally hip thing, to exercise and spend a lot of time exercising, and everybody's working on their workout routine or their new thing they're going to try and whatever. And what if for you, yeah, me either. So what if for you, it's just like, nah, I'm not doing that. I'm just not doing it. It's not always a very popular thing. And so if you're married to somebody who's a workout freak and they want a spouse or a lover or whatever you are that's a workout freak, you might try to adopt that, right? And be like, oh yeah, okay, well, I'm going to start, working out. I mean, I'm not going to do what my guy does or my girl does, but I'm going to start doing something, da 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 da. And then you just kind of can't stay with, you stay with it for a week or two while it's fun or
that's
interesting
why
or something.
And
then you let it go. Because it's not yours, it's theirs. It's their yearning. And we do it all the time with work. We're all so conditioned to, unfortunately, kind of follow what others want for us, whether that's a spouse, a parent, an authority figure, what we think our church wants. I mean, I was the most perfect, well, no, I wasn't, but I was trying to be the most perfect submissive wife, because that's what my religion told me I needed to be, was a submissive, subservient, woman. And so I was really trying to be that, but I couldn't sustain it because that wasn't me. That wasn't who I wanted to be, but I hardly knew myself well enough to even know that. But there's always enough of your true self, in your soul that keeps knocking on that door and say, hey, let me out, we want to play, this is going to be better. And, so that's part of the process, is waking up to what I really want, and doing those things, because those are the things that move us towards a feeling of freedom and joy and love, and all the other stuff takes us towards something that feels constricting and limiting and, yuck.
Yeah. So oh man, you're doing this. I love this interview. And my next question is actually, what brings you joy? Like, what excites you?
Well, I absolutely love the work that I do. So I love coaching people. I love the business clients I work with. So I do love what I do, and that brings me a lot of joy, because I think what's, even in real estate, I spent most of my career managing or owning offices, not selling real estate. I mean, of course, I did that for a while, but I didn't really enjoy that. And what I loved, when I look back on it now, what I loved about my real estate career was that in those leadership roles I had, I was always developing other people, right? So that's really, from a work standpoint, helping you become the highest expression of yourself you can be is my great joy as far as the work that I put in the world. I love traveling. which is, again, another reason why this work works so well for me, because I can work from anywhere. And so like right now I'm sitting in Pennsylvania, but I'm really living in Southern California. And someday I'm going to be working from, an Airbnb in Paris or something for 6 weeks or so, because I'm a total Francophile and, I love to travel. So, my family, of course, I have got these 4 great grown children, and they're all married, and I've got 3 grandchildren, and just a really awesome network of friends. And, so relationships, relationships that really feed me. One of the things I'll say, like if there's, the side of all this transformation and growth that I've gone for and to in my life, it is that, some relationships are lost along the way because people won't like you in your highest expression of yourself. They liked you in your codependent way, in my case, or whatever anybody's pattern is, so it has meant that I've left some relationships along the way, and that's always a tricky thing, or, whatever, not fun.
But don't you think that that's really a reflection on them, because they're insecure? They look at you, morphing or evolving into this person, and they get angry or resentful.
Right. Because somebody who loves you, even if it means what you need to do moves you away from me, if I'm going to, because the absolute opposite of love is to say, well, no, I don't care if that's good for you. Stay here. Change. Don't do that differently. So you're right. It's absolutely a reflection on them. But it's still not easy, even when that, when you're leaving a marriage, or, either leaving or distancing yourself from family members, there's not a lot of cultural support a lot of times for those kinds of things, especially within your family. Yeah. You can get more support for leaving a spouse. So those can be tough choices, but the joy is everybody in my life is somebody that I totally enjoy and love and support them, and they support me. So I don't have holidays I'm spending with people I dread, or, like whatever obligation-y kind of stuff. I do what I want to do with the people I want to do it with. Wow. And there's so much joy and freedom in that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would love, I'm not there yet, Brenda.
Well, that's okay. Hey, it's a journey. It took me a long time.
What I did want to ask you, so just a little shift. So do you have a daily ritual every morning? Do you wake up and, do you have a set of steps that you do or anything?
Yeah, I do. I'll say I'm not 100% daily on it, because over the period of, because I grew up in such an obligatory, climate culture and doing everything that everybody else wanted me to do. I'm incredibly rebellious now against certain, that kind of, you have to do this every day thing. Yep. So even when I'm choosing these things for myself, I kind of I still have a little rebellious streak, but for the most part, on a daily basis, I am meditating and journaling and reading. Now, I'm a voracious reader. Of course, you could do audibles if you don't really like to read. But anyway, I'm always taking in information that is going to better me in some way or another. So those 3 things, you'd be pretty hard-pressed to find a day that, I'm not doing all of them, or 2 out of 3 or something. Awesome. But I have to have the meditation. So meditation is very specific, wrapped in all of that. And I want to make this point because I think it's super important, is that all of things are happening in solitude. And I think the ability for any of us to be in solitude is so critical to our unfolding. And I don't mean ability like my life is busy and I have little kids and I can't find the time. Okay, that's one thing. And I've been there and done that. And so I know that, and I know carve out minutes and, time here and there. But what I really mean by ability is, can you stand being by yourself? Because many of us actually are uncomfortable at the prospect of being alone. And so that, like, I couldn't stand it. When I first started on my journey, in my late 20s, I didn't want to be alone because I just wasn't comfortable with all that, when you have to look at, there's nobody to blame anything on, there's nobody to distract you, there's no numbing out, there's no nothing. And so cultivating solitude is an art in and of itself. I don't know if that makes sense to you. Do you have an experience with that?
No, I like it. Recently, I've been filling up my time by watching videos and training, and if I'm sitting still, it drives me insane. So one of my goals for 2019 is definitely to journal and make myself pause. And I love books. I love to hold them. So I'm not an audible person at all. I don't even know how to do it. So but that's something that I have to intentionally do, where before, without your cell phone and your Facebook and your Instagram, I would love to do that. And I'm so far away from that is one of my goals for this year.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really an important thing to get time where you are disconnecting from the normal routine of life. I'll just say, whatever that is, it doesn't matter. But we can't cultivate, it's like, and I'm sure I use this quote in our leadership, because I use it all the time, which is Einstein's very famous quote, that we can't change a problem from the mindset that created it. But okay, that sounds great. But if we think about it, how do I really start to create a different mindset? Like 95% of what we think and feel, everybody, all of us, is unconscious. So I'm not even aware 95% of what I'm thinking and feeling every day. So how am I going to take all that and create a different mindset? I mean, it takes attention, it takes an effort, and it takes doing something differently, to allow something different to emerge.
You just recommended a book, and I forget what the title is, but it is exactly what you just described. What is the name of that book?
So probably it was Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself.
Yes.
Does that sound familiar? Yeah. Okay. So that book is by Dr. Joe Dispenza, and he's one of my probably biggest teachers and mentors right now for the last, 2 years now. I found his work in January about 2 years ago. And it's so funny because he's a neuroscientist and a chiropractor. And so he's a very scientific guy. And I am so not scientific, having been raised, this good Bible-banging Baptist and believing everything on faith and don't ask any questions and all that. I don't need I can believe pretty easily. And yet I find myself really fascinated by kind of understanding how this is really working, how our brains are really working, and how those habits, why those 4 pillars that I talked about actually are really damn hard. Because we've been doing something else and our brain is conditioned to stay in that pattern that it knows so well instead of doing something different. So I love that book and all of his work. He's got tons of stuff you can watch on YouTube and whatever. Even though I'm not a scientist person, I'm very practical. As you probably know from being with me in the leadership group, I don't want to talk about these lofty ideals of enlightenment or consciousness and awareness without being able to help people do that. So great, self-awareness is awesome, but how do I become self-aware? And that's what we spent so much of our time with in the leadership program. But I'm very practical and pragmatic in that way, as is he. And so I think that's part of why his work, speaks to me so much.
So outside of his work, what are some of your favorite mentors or people that you have looked up to through the years?
So I was trained by Dr. Martha Beck, and she is a coach and a writer, self-help writer, and has her own coach training program. And I love Martha's work. She's brilliant, and she's I just like her approach that we all have everything we need within us. We all have all the wisdom, all the tools for everything we ever need to do to become that highest expression of ourselves. And the role that a coach plays is simply to help you uncover the things that are blocking you from. We all have things that block us from that wisdom. And so, which is why I always get coaching, because I have them too. Just because I coach other people out of theirs doesn't mean I don't have my own blind spots. So I self-coach a lot, a lot. But I also almost always, since I've been a coach for the last 4 years, I've had at least one coach I'm paying and working with as well to help me, with my blind spots. But so I love Martha's work. She's very easily found. I mean, she's marthabeck.com, but she's written a lot of books and has a column in Oprah's magazine and whatnot. The other work that I really like is Byron Katie's. Her name is Byron, Byron is her first name. Katie is her last name. And she has this process she created out of her own enlightenment experience when she was basically suicidal and living in a halfway house. And just for those of you Bible fans, a Damascus Road experience, where she just kind of woke up and was like, okay, everything's different. Right. And she writes about that in her books, and she has a lot of YouTube videos too. But the process she uses, which is a mindset thought work process, full in one I was trained, and so I use it with clients as well. So those come to mind right away.
I remember the last person that you just said, that woman, and then also so after our classes last year, I showed my husband, my kids, the videos, the cartoons of Brene Brown, and I still watch them.
Brene Brown.
Love her.
Yeah. She's awesome too. Love Brene Brown. I mean, there's tons of people. I'm always soaking it up. I love the Abraham Hicks stuff. I mean, I'm a big believer in the law of attraction and stuff. I don't think it's as simple as The Secret made it sound, where I can just sit in my living room and think about $1 million coming and it comes. But but that doesn't mean there isn't a truth to the foundation of that teaching. And I love how how Abraham channeled being, if you don't know about them, and a woman named Esther Hicks channels Abraham's voice, so to speak. I like their work as well.
Wow. Oh, very cool. And thanks for sharing that. So I'm winding down, and I have a couple of quick questions, much in the vein of the Actors Studio. I forget that guy's name with the beard. Cracks me up. So
but I love him. Yes. Okay, lay it on me.
So what is your favorite drink?
A Cosmopolitan.
Cosmo, nice. What is your favorite book? Or maybe a book that you're reading now that's on your nightstand.
Yeah, I love, so forgetting all these self-help, things that we've talked a lot about. So obviously I have a nightstand full of those. But I love any book written by Americans typically, who have lived in Paris or somewhere in France for some period of time, or maybe are still living there. So, because it's that Francophile thing, and especially people who are cooks. So I also love to cook. So like I love Julia Child's My Life in France, and there are so many books in that genre. And if I've read 10, I've read 30 of them. I mean, I'm always looking for new books about what it's like living in Paris or in France.
Okay, so anyone listening, if you can recommend any books for Brenda, definitely do so. All right. Now, what's your favorite curse word?
Fuck.
Love that. Love it.
Absolutely. But I never say it in anger. So I say it like an exclamation point, but not when I'm angry. But I say fuck a lot. Yeah.
There's so many. I love when the kids aren't around. It's my favorite. People must think I'm crazy because I drop it all the time. Okay. Do you have a bucket list item or an action that you want to do in 2019? Brenda, I don't know if we got cut off.
Yeah. I lost you again for a second. So we got past fuck. What was the next question?
Do you have a bucket list action or something that you want to do in 2019?
Yeah. So this is super exciting for me, and it ties in perfectly with my file thing. I have a woman who is born and raised in Paris who I met. She was a private tour guide on a retreat that I went on in Paris a couple years ago, and she has offered to teach me to speak French. And so I am looking forward to French lessons with her. I have wanted to learn to speak French for 10 years or more.
Oh my gosh. Now, are you going to go over there, or are you going to do it satellite, or what are you going to do?
I will. Yeah. No, well, we'll do the training by phone. She said she would send me, like word, like documents, would read them, and she would, teach me how to say them and what I was reading and all that kind of stuff. So we're going to do the by phone. But then, so I'm 58. When the year I have my 60th birthday in 2 years, I'm planning a trip to Paris. So I will definitely in person when I go to Paris the next time.
That is awesome. And oh my God, that is so cool. I'm really excited for you. That's really all I have. I just want to thank you for your time. I really, really appreciate it. And how can people find you?
Yeah, so my website's Brenda at brendaflorida.com. I'm on Facebook, of course. My business page is brendaflorida.com. But private message me or whatever. Email me. My email is Brenda at brendaflorida.com. So it's all pretty easy. Yeah. And I would love, even if just you have a question about something I said or whatever, it doesn't have to be you're interested in working with me or whatever. This is just the kind of stuff I enjoy talking to people.
Well, I love it. And you were the perfect person. This is my first podcast. I thank you for your patience. And I just love learning. And there's really no one else that I really look up to. I love that you have created the life that you love. And it's been really cool to listen and have a conversation with you today. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm honored to be your first guest. I love it. Thank you. Thank you for the light that you're spreading in the world.
Well, thank you. And listen, have a great day. And
all right.
That's it. All right. Bye-bye.